Hey guys, welcome to the Lunge and Lift podcast. Today we've got a great episode for you, all about how to lift extremely heavy. Rob, a client and a friend, have just competed at a powerlifting competition, so we've got loads of great takeaways for you if you're interested in getting stronger with the barbell, how to peak for competition, and plenty more little learnings. But before we get into it, as always, a quick thank you to our show sponsors, thetrainingstimulus.com. Please register your interest if you'd like to learn more about movement mechanics. Wit Fitness, wit-fitness.com. Please use the discount code LL15 to get 15% off your purchase. And Hydro, use discount code LL20 to get 20% off your blood flow restriction apparel. So, Rob, powerlifting.
Yes.
It went well. Can you tell us what the competition was? And we'll start with that.
Yeah. Well, as if you don't know what a powerlifting competition is, squat, bench, and deadlift, and you get 3 attempts at each lift. And yeah, the goal is to lift as much as possible. And if you're in there to compete against others, is to lift more than others in your weight category. And if you're just there to do as good as you can, then you just got to try and smash it and just perform at your best. And so on our particular day, it was more like the heavyweights in a way. It was 80 to 90 kilos, 90 to 100 kilos, 100 to 110, 110 to 120, and then it might have gone 120 to 130 or just 120 plus. And we also had equipped lifters and untested lifters. So we were all kind of competing together. Even though it was like two federations, so like the ABPU and the BPU. So the ABPU is like the amateur. I can't even remember now, but basically the tested one, probably British Powerlifting Union. That's what it is. And so you had basically the tested and the untested, and so it was really really good because even if the equipped lifting and like the geared up lifting isn't necessarily for me per se, it's still inspiring to see what some people can do. Like, I saw someone attempt a 400 kilo squat and just and the way they warmed up, they stood up to the bar and so got their hands in the squat position, like shaking it, and then just headbutted the bar, bit of blood dripping down the head, gets underneath it and then stands it back. Oh no, it doesn't even stand it back because it's a monolift. So a monolift, for those that don't know what it is like you get under the bar, stand up, and they like moves the rack out of the way, and then they don't need to walk back, they just squat straight down and up. And because he's like wearing like the squat suit and stuff like that, like you see it goes down so slowly. And for those that don't know what a squat suit is imagine really stretchy pants that goes like in a way like a onesie that goes down, so that it creates so much tension. And when they hit the bottom position, it's like maximal spring and pops them out. And I saw him hit, I think it was 375 or 380, and then he failed 400. But like just seeing that much load on a bar, it was so impressive, because it's like that's what commitment to a sport is. When someone's gone that far in down things, assisted with all the gear on and stuff like that, like they've committed to this, and it's passion, right? And it's always a cool thing to see. I think no matter what sport it is, when someone's passionate about something, it gets you going as well.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing in a few different ways, I guess. I've never seen the headbutt before. That's a new move.
I had
how many kilos that gets you?
And the best bit is so my client who was there competing with me as well, his missus come down and his missus' mum, and so they've never been to anything like this. So they're seeing this. I'm like, right, just to let you know, Jamie isn't going to end up like this. Like, this isn't his thing. His thing isn't to be like this, but just take this for what it is. And it's just, it was so cool.
That's hilarious. So tell us about the lead up. So you've got a competition. How long ago did you book it? And what was your planning process for building up to it?
Well, I think we booked it I think it was at the start of the year. And yeah, I think it was around the start of the year, start of January. And it was going to be around, I think it was like 14 weeks or something like that. And so we kind of planned, like me and my client, planned his training around it. I said, look, we're both going to do this, so let's both follow the same program. I don't see why we both need to do the same sort of stuff. Slight tweaks here and there, but generally the principle was pretty much exactly the same. And we said, so I built up a 10-week program, got him started on that. We were doing really well, basing it around RPE, so rating of perceived exertion. So like building up, rather than building up to set percentages per se, you'll be building up to say a heavy 2 at an RPE 6, an RPE 7, RPE 8, and RPE 9. And then in the next cycle is I built a heavy 1 at RPE 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I had I think it was like a 5-week percentage based plan, kind of to going into then the meet itself. So I kind of hybrided the two kind of styles, just because what it had done, it gave not only myself, it gave my client a clear idea of, right, roughly this is where we're going to aim for using percentages and stuff like that. But again, so if I turn to hit 88%, we're in a range. We're going to be, say, between like, say, 86 and 88%. Like your max for the day will be at 88. I don't want you going any heavier than that. But let's try and get as close to that as possible, because, you know, if you felt shit, then I know we'd be on the lower end, and same vice versa for me. That's why I'm a big fan of RPE training. So yeah, so I just programmed it out accordingly. It was 4 days a week, which was, I think, the biggest game changer for especially my client. He was very comfortable training 5 times a week. He's been training 5 times a week for God knows how long. Doing a lot more like CrossFit and stuff like that. Like, that's how we train, a bit like just mixed training. And then when we specialized into powerlifting for basically, say, the start of this year, and took him down to 4 days a week, not only did he get stronger, because obviously he specialized, so he knew exactly what he had to do, just had to get good at 3 things. He was able to recover better because he was doing a little less. And he then started to appreciate the benefit of a recovery day. And I think that it can easily get lost when you're training 5 times a week. You say, oh, I train Monday to Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, I'm resting. So he then knew, okay, cool, if I've only got 4 sessions to train, I'm going to train as hard as I can in those 4 sessions, get the most out of them as I can, and then recover outside it and focus on those things. And he's a partner at a law firm, so, you know, he's not in fitness at all. You know, it's a massive passion of his, and he's been training with me for a while. And it was such a cool thing to see, because I found a video on my phone of like one of his first sessions at Virgin Active, like deadlifting 40 kilos for like a couple of reps and stuff like that. And I was just like, to then see him on competition day was really cool.
Awesome. And were there any setbacks or challenges along the way in that build-up preparation?
Yes and no. On my client side, he actually busted his back end of last year. So he scaled right back to like the bar 30 kilos and was like, fuck, am I ever going to get towards like 180 kilos? So that was his goal. He really wants to hit 180, or he wants to hit 200. But like his first goal was 180. And he was just like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. And then come the new year with the goal and the focus, the extra recovery, he smashed it. So then his training was particularly linear. Like, you know, as you do. You come in, you turn up, you do the work, you leave. My training, on the other hand, was it would have been perfect if I didn't decide to build a gym. So, you know, I sold my shed and decided to build a new home gym at the start of my, probably mid-prep. And what's funny is we started to go to Ronin Strength, so in Stratford, Stratfordish, and because I just wanted to be surrounded by like strong individuals. And it was a place where right before I started to build the gym, I hit a 225 single, so 225 kilos on my back squat for a 1 rep, which was 2.5 kilos off my lifetime PB, and it was a bit of a grind. But I did it. I was over the moon. That was the last time I then trained for 4 weeks while I was building the gym. And then I started to train. And pretty much for the last 6 weeks, I pretty much trained twice a week. Because I'd do the heavy squat and bench day, and then heavy deadlift day. And the accessory days, or the other day, I didn't do. Because I was either working, doing more stuff around the house, gym stuff. So I didn't have the smooth sailing prep that I thought I'd have. But I never use it as an excuse, because I made in my head, I was like, right, get the heavy stuff done. That is specific to what I need to do in the day. The other stuff is additional stuff. So it's like the other stuff will get me stronger, and it gets me better movement patterns and everything. It just gets me better. But maybe if I can just tick the boxes off enough, that will get me enough to the day where I can then decide and go from there.
That's cool. I think 2 days a week, nobody would imagine that could be productive strength training, but you've proved that it is. So, I guess having trained a lot more than that previously, to still be able to make progress from just lifting twice a week, I think that's a big lesson to a lot of people, that more is not necessarily better. And actually sometimes erring on the side of less that you can definitely recover from, but still making sure that you cover the primary must-have training stimulus, you can still make significant progress. So
Yeah.
I think that's a nice natural segue into the competition day itself. Can you tell us how you built up to the day? What were you doing the night before, day of, from a training nutrition perspective?
Well, I'm going to just take it back 2 weeks. So 2 weeks before the day. And I was weighing in at 102 kilos. So my category was supposed to be 90 to 100 kilos. So I was weighing in at 102. I was like, right, I've got 2 weeks. I can completely drop down below 100, turn up on the day. Like 2 kilos is a piece of piss to lose. Jamie was weighing in at 92 as well. So he was going to actually be in a category below us in 80 to 90. So he had to then lose a little bit. And Adam was actually eating up from where he comfortably sits around mid 80s, and he was weighing in at 97 kilos the week of the competition. Right, so he'd done a good job, done a really good job. He said he'd been eating a lot of rice pudding, a lot of he's very consistent with his food. He just then added more. So he knew what he needed to do to add some extra weight. So yeah, so leading into the competition, 2 weeks prior, myself and Jamie hit our top numbers that we kind of wanted to hit. So Jamie hit 180 kilos for a single, and because he'd hit 175 kilos for a double the week before, or 2 weeks before that, so he hit 180 kilos for a single. So he already hit his lifetime PB that he wanted to hit. Now, what was really good, we was at Ronin Strength, and he hit 175 for a clean single, and it was like we was only programmed for a single up to that. But when you see someone has it in them and you know that they can go beyond 180, I was like, look, this is the beauty of RPE. Like, go for it. Like, hit 180, you're gonna smoke it, you'll be fine, and you'll feel good. But remember that competition day, that was supposed to be safe for competition day. So I was like, just make the decision. So you had to make that decision, hit that, and it was cool. I hit 260 that day. So I was like, right, at least I've hit my openers. So I now know I can at least hit what I'm supposed to be hitting on the day. And so the week of the competition, we both hit around 80% for a couple of doubles on the Monday on our squat and our bench. Our squat and our deadlift. And our bench, we did some like 60% work, just a little tiny bit of volume. The Tuesday was a like heavy single on the bench, probably around an 8 RPE 8, so nothing too strenuous, but close to our, say, openers. And I didn't actually do the Tuesday session. I just ended up doing the Monday. I was like, because I've already been having shoulder injuries, a bit of a shoulder niggle for this whole prep. I've had to go to like a close grip bench press, just to negate some shoulder stress. So that week was a real chilled week. Like, I'd already shifted Jamie's training and mine. So we trained on Tuesday, Wednesday, took Thursday as a rest day, and trained Friday, Saturday, because the competition was going to be on a Saturday. So his body was already used to like kind of training in that frequency. So we did Tuesday, Wednesday, well, he did Wednesday as well, rested Thursday. Friday was an extra day's rest. And he said he felt like he actually needed it because he actually had a bit of DOM still, but then he woke up Saturday feeling ready to go. And that was the thing. It's like we made that decision probably around 8 weeks before the competition to move the training to Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So he had enough time to adapt rather than training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which is what he normally did. So just because, even though it doesn't sound like much, is if you train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, which is extremely common, and you've got a competition on Saturday, to have that kind of change where you actually then have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday after 3 days off, that tension in the body that you kind of want for a competition. Because you don't want to go into a competition so fresh that everything feels heavy. You want to be, we've heard that for loads of previous guests, like you kind of want to go in with that little bit of not an ache, but you lift. So having 1 day extra off just gives you that little bit of extra energy, especially with, maybe some considerations for maybe going for a walk, getting a bit more food, hydration, make sure you're going into competition really well. So that week of the prep was quite chilled.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a really important point for peaking for competition, to get your body rhythms matched up to when you're going to need to perform. Like if you're used to taking a rest day and your weekly rhythm and training rhythm puts you in like a fatigue state that's yeah, your body's expecting downtime, to then ask it to perform maximally will be a bit of a system shock. So I really like the fact you change your training days. And something else you hear people do is sort of change the time of day that they train to match when they need to perform as well. Like footballers going into evening matches will change their training times to be later in the day so that it's not such a system shock that they're expected to output at the time of the match.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's an interesting one, because the thing with powerlifting, and I guess even with CrossFit as well, like CrossFit, like short workouts but over a full day. So a lot of it
Mm.
is actually, I'd say, nutrition, but when we get to the actual day, I'll tell you about that. But like, it's the nutrition is obviously the fueling for the workout at hand. But where powerlifting is just you lift this and get it done, but it's over a day. Like, it's an interesting stressor on the body, which comes with experience. Obviously, the more you do it, this is only my second one that I've actually done before, but it was, I feel I was quite accustomed to it from CrossFit, because I was used to like training hard and having short rests. Like, that's how I now like to train. Like, I don't like to have too long in between warm-ups, and I just like to get to the work and get it done rather than taking too long. And yeah, so that was an interesting one.
Let's go on then. What did you eat on the day?
Okay, so starting the day before, night before. So just quickly there, because I mentioned about my weight. Now the reason I said that is because 2 weeks prior to that, I spoke to Jamie and I was like, look, this is your first competition. Go in. Don't worry about your weight. Just do you. Be as strong as you possibly can. Turn up on the day and feel as strong as possible. As I was telling him these things, like, we had our session, and then it kind of resonated with me, and I was like, why am I trying to like get under 100 kilos? Why don't I just lift? Because I've only trained twice a week. I've built a gym, I've done all this extra stuff. Why do I need another stress on the body of potentially not performing as well as I could? See, that's really what I'm there to do. So I was like, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to see how it goes over the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I definitely had the fuck it's, and I was just like, got to one day before weighing in at 103.5. I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm sweet here. And when I said to Adam, I was like, when I look back at any of my PBs, I never think, what was my body weight here? I always just see what I've lifted. My body weight means nothing to me. It's like, it's my performance, and the category is only based on the federation I'm in. Because sometimes it's 99 kilos or under, sometimes it's 100 kilos and under. It might actually be a bit over. So it's federation based rather than anything else. So I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go in and just give it my all. And that's all I can give. And so the night before, so Adam come down from Sunderland. He stayed over, and we went to Sainsbury's. We've got some Cocoa Rocks, so cereal. So that was our pre-bed snack. Some pizza, plenty of like high fat, high carb foods. Plenty of hydration. Felt really, really good, and watched some strongman competition stuff the night before.
Nice.
Feeling really good, getting pumped up. And then early doors, getting up, had another bowl of cereal because I wasn't worrying about weight. We then went to Waitrose on the way to the competition, got some more food and stuff for the day. And it was such a non-stressful prep that, because I didn't have to worry about weight, I was just turning up. It felt so good. It's like the first time I've ever gone to a competition and not worried about my weight. And I was just like, it was an amazing feeling, because then it meant all my lifting just felt really nice. And also, because I was then coaching Jamie as well, so a coach-client relationship as well there. Thankfully, he was in the category below me, so with Adam, because then I was able to watch him, observe what he was doing, and give him the correct jumps, rather than also trying to squat at the same time and have that stress. So because it was in the flights of 80 to 90 and 90 to 100 kilos went together. And then it was anyone from 100 kilos and above, geared, assisted, and everything else is all in this category. So it meant I was in a category on my own, but it meant I could actually observe properly and make better decisions. So I think it was a better all-round decision for me to be in the heavier class.
Great. So let's get to it. Everyone's been waiting to hear. Tell us how it went.
It went better than it could have expected. Like, I went in, I think I said on a couple of podcasts ago, 2 podcasts ago, it's like, I want to go in, aim for a 230 squat and potentially fail it and go for it again. Like, that was my goal, because all I wanted to do was beat my lifetime PB of 227.5, which was done in 2015. So I was like, I just have to beat that. That's all I have to do. So I went in on the day and I was like, right, I'm going to have all my openers at all what I hit in my last set, my last attempt on my last competition. So my openers were 220 kilos on the squat, 150 kilos on the bench, and 260 kilos on the deadlift. So they were my openers, and I was like, right, I'm happy with that. Let's go from there. And Jamie, I said, right, we just need to make, because he struggles with squat depth at times. Or at times, it's been for most of his training, and recently we've been really working on it, and he's been getting a lot better. He absolutely pulled it out of the bag on a day. There was no question of depth, and we had a conservative opener, because you don't want eyes on you if you fail your first rep. You fail your first rep on depth, you know you're going to be watched properly for all reps after that. So he's like, look, let's just make sure we get a conservative one. And we made a decent jump, and we hit what he wanted to do. So he went 135 on the squat. He then went 140, 145, and then I think he went 150. So his goal was a 150 squat, and he smashed it. So with Adam, he wanted a lifetime PB for there, and he managed to hit 220 kilos on the squat with straps, which was really cool. So knee wrap, sorry. So because in the category we was in, you could either wear knee sleeves or you could wrap your knees. I don't practice with knee wraps, so they wouldn't have really benefited me. So that's why I just stuck with my knee sleeves. So he hit a 220 squat, which was absolutely amazing to see, because it was his lifetime PB, and yeah, it was awesome to be part of that. And then my one, I went 220, and so I went up to 230, hit 230 like it was nothing. I was like, fuck. It was very fast. And I was like, and this was what was so important, because we was filming all of our lifts, which if you haven't seen them, you can go on my Instagram and check out the story. I tried to make it as a story for the day. So it's on one of my highlights of the day, and it was really cool to see, especially like watching the other people's lifts as well. But yes, I hit 230, and watching it back, it just looked like it was nothing. And I was like, I got to go 240. So 240 on my back. Oh, sorry. Scale back to 220. You have to say your rack height and rack width. So with the monolift, you say how wide the thing goes, so that what holds the barbell. So I said, right, this height and wide. So I've gone up to the bar, I've got it on my back, and I've barely lifted it up, and the woman's already made it go forward. So she's already pulled the monolift forward. So I hadn't even got it on my back, and they're like, whoa. And I was like, so, 220 kilos, my first opener where you're most stressed. This has happened. I'm like, fuck's sake. Anyway, so it is what it is. I got over it. Got under the bar. I was like, oh, this is a bit narrow. Why is this so narrow for my hands? I have to go outside where I normally go. Anyway, got it on my back, stepped back, did my squat, tried to rack it in. And because it's so narrow, I'm catching my fingers. I'm really struggling, right? And I'm just like, this is all of my first attempts. I'm just like, cool, okay, just overcome it. This is the thing I like competition. You can never know what's going to happen. You just have to make sure you can kind of deal with things as they are and don't over stress about them. So yeah, having that, and I was like, right, went over to the people and said, look, next one, can it be wide? Because I don't know, it wasn't wide, that one, so they sorted it. So 230, 240 come around, and yeah, hit that, and I still had more left in the tank. So I'm just like, it was such a cool feeling, because I was like, fuck, like that was so much more than I wanted. So 12.5 kilos over my lifetime PB, and 20 kilos more than my last competition in November. So I was just like, fuck yeah. So it was yeah. Oh, it was so good. So yeah.
And how do you feel about it? How do you feel when we had the Are You Fit Enough episodes? You're like, 230 will be enough. But now you hit 240.
When I said 250 sounds good? I did say that. So I said 250 is a nice round number, and 300 on the deadlift. So I think they're still there for me. But
yeah.
Mainly just because I will compete again, because I said, we're going to probably go up to like York towards the end of the year, so around November time. So I was like, that's enough time for me to actually dabble in a bit more like CrossFit, functional training, just to get a bit of fitness back, because I hated being as heavy as I was. I didn't enjoy being 103, like day-to-day feeling. So I will come down and try and hit towards some of these numbers again anyway. But yeah, I still think I'm going to have to stick, because of the type of person I am. I've got to stick to 250, and I think I do honestly feel then, because obviously the next step after that's 300. I'm not squatting 300 kilos. I don't want to squat. Well, I'd love to, but I cannot be bothered with that work. So yeah, it's not
a big cost associated.
Yeah,
awesome, mate. So then squat, bench next.
Yeah, bench. That was a really interesting one. So bench press went really well for Adam. He hit he went in with a plan of hitting 100 kilos, 105 kilos, and 110 kilos. He hit all three of those and completely fine. My client Jamie, he He hit 100 kilos, hit 105 kilos. And I think because he saw two people fail before him, that was kind of in his head. And I was like, look, mate, you're good. Right? 110 kilos, you got it. So 105 kilos was a 3 kilo lifetime PB. So, and he had 110 kilos in him, right? So he gets under the bar for 110 kilos. I unrack it for him, step back. He goes down and he just doesn't pause long enough. He pretty much goes down and start tap and go. And with powerlifting, you have to pause in your chest until they say press. He still gets the rep, so we still count it as a gym PB for him. Like that's complete, and he's now got an 8 kilo lifetime PB on his bench press, which is amazing. Just to competition standards, he's hit 105, but we took that as a you still hit 110, like because again, it's what he benched. And then with me, so I had this perception in my head that because I've hit 161 kilos before at WIT, and I was with Josh Alshama and Tom Lowe. And so I watched back the video afterwards. It's annoying because if I would have watched it back before, I probably wouldn't have done this. And so I went 150. I think I then went 155. And then I went 162. So no, 157. So I did a 150, a 157, and a 162. 157 went up. It went up with a little bit of a struggle, but it didn't slow down. It continually moved. So I was like, cool, sweet. 162 kilos because I had to try and beat my lifetime best. I got it part of the way up and I started to cramp in my lower back and I then let out all my air and like that. And then as you make noises, you're letting out that tension. And yeah, I lost the rep. So it was a no rep for me there. So then when I watched back to my 161 kilos, I got it, but there was a lot of wiggling. There was definitely hips up, and I was like, maybe if I went 160, I probably would have got it. Because there's like where I lost 162, just it was right that bit. So I probably would have got 160. But again, I'm happy I did what I did and I made the decision and I didn't get it.
For it.
Yeah, and that was my whole goal was to go for it. Like there was to not hold back on any of the lifts.
Excellent. That's amazing, mate. And finally, deadlift. How did we get on there?
The deadlift. So Adam smashed it again. He went up, he hit a lifetime PB. So he hit a competition PB of 220 and then he hit a lifetime PB of 230, which was amazing to see there. So Adam, he's the one that got me into strength training. So he's the one that got me way back in 2013. Like it was like a mentor at like the Virgin that we was at, helped us out loads and then got me basically underneath a barbell. And yeah, ever since then, it's always been obviously my thing of strength. So cool to kind of compete with him and see him hit a lifetime PB in competition. Jamie absolutely smashed it. So we opened him up at 175. So it was just under what he hit the other day because then his second attempt was going to be a 182. So 182 and a half. Because we said, right, you've hit 180. You've hit 175 for a double. Just secure it, get it, go. He hit 182, flew up. And I was like, right, okay. He wants to go 200. And you just know he has something in him on that day. But we can't go from 182 to 200. You just can't. Like, not when you've never been anywhere near there. Like, the stress of 200 will be too much. So the mental side of it, not necessarily the capacity of the body. So we went 190 and that flew up. And so we were over the moon with that. So his celebration when you watch it back is just like, it's a pure elation. Like when you see my 240 squat, like it was pure elation. I was over the moon. So my deadlift, it was a mixed bag. It was like 260, went up, felt heavy as fuck, but went up. Watched back the video, it flew up. I was like, okay, it didn't feel like that, but it looked easy. So 270 flew up, felt incredibly heavy, but looked fine. So I was like, for fuck's sake. 280 on the bar. So this is the one I didn't even get leaving the floor last time. 280 on the bar, get it to my knees and I don't finish it. And I'm just like, I'm absolutely gutted. So because at the time, I felt I was pulling for ages, especially because of the deadlift bar as well with the slack. Like you're pulling and I felt I couldn't get it. Now, looking back, and I've reviewed that footage a few times, like I've moved on from it. Like I'm not like, oh, I wish I got it. Like it is what it is, you know. I say, cool, I got it further to the floor this time than I did last time. Next time I'm going to get it. Next time it will be my second attempt. So this time, like when I've looked at it back, I was just like, I didn't have the fight, and I thought I was fighting. So when I watch everyone else like grind them out, hold on to them, crane them, getting in that last bit, like finding anything you can. I didn't have that. And that has come because when I looked back at when I did a 275 in competition at strength in depth, and I watched that back, like I fought for that. Like I fought for that rep. Whereas now I think where I've had a back injury and I didn't allow myself to really get out of position. Like I didn't allow that. So then it meant my positional strength wasn't strong enough. But obviously with powerlifting, it's not about positional strength. It's about move it from A to B. So I didn't allow myself to find some other muscles to then use it to finish it.
Yeah.
So that's actually something that's going into my next training block. Like, putting myself into a bit more compromising positions and training myself there with lighter loads and like we all often discuss. So, yeah.
What sort of things are you going to do? Like what sort of movements are you going to put into your program?
Well, having a lot more, like say 3D deadlifts that we've done there, but also like a lot of straight leg deadlifts. So a lot more like black flexion. So like the other day I was doing some snatches and so I was doing some snatch grip RDLs. And then I went so I did five snatch grip RDLs into 5 snatch grip like back bending RDLs. So basically, or straight leg deadlift. So basically I was like, right, I'm going to take a generic exercise, do those. So I've got great hamstring connection, everything. The muscles are just right. Then I specialize it into my needs and say, right, I also now need to get my back more accustomed to flexing and feeling stronger there because it was only 70 kilos on the bar. So, and it's fine. So I've been before, like a couple of weeks back, I was doing straight leg deadlifts from the floor with 140 completely fine. So it's like my body can do it. It just didn't want to fight on the day, even though it was the right environment. Everything was right for me to hit that. My body was not willing to fight for that rep. And I was like, do you know what? I'll take it. It's annoying. I thought I did everything. When I've looked back at the photo where I've got literally the moment right before I let go and it's like, it's at my knees, literally the easiest bits. Then all you need to do is get the hip through. That is it. That is the finish. And I'm just like, I didn't allow the back to flex when I look at it. So yeah, but it was one of those days where everything just went according to plan, and I couldn't have asked for better. And yeah, it was really good to compete alongside a client and friend, and then also with Adam as well, another friend competing alongside him. Like it just meant the whole experience was so much more enjoyable. So
great. Like sounds like an amazing day, and yeah, really pleased for you. And I think those lessons are really valuable for you and the listeners as well. I think that point about training to get yourself out of positions and dealing with past injury, the deadlift is probably the number one movement where people are worried to get out of position. And I think that's a really useful message for the listeners in terms of how to approach building up the confidence to let yourself get out of position or to build up that resilience so that next time you compete, you've got the faith that your body will hold up. And having those sort of flexed back positions where you not only build the strength, but build the confidence that the nervous system will let you go there and come back. Stuff like the Jefferson curls and your round back deadlifts there, I think teach a valuable lesson in that if we only ever train in perfect positions, then they're the only positions our body likes to be in. So as soon as you go slightly away from those, your body will freak out and you might get a back spasm like we talked about in our back episode. So I think they're really cool learnings. What else do you think you took away either as an athlete or a coach from the meet?
I think one of the most important things that I took away is what you feel is not what's going on. And like we've said this before, you said the saying way back, and it was like your feelings are a poor perception of reality. So like, that was roughly what you said. And for me, watching back the videos, like as a coach for Jamie, that saying, right, these are your attempts, and this is what you're going to hit this. Because again, when you've trained someone for a good period of time, you know when they can fight, and you know where their capacities are. So even if they've got a massive ego, like, I can lift whatever, which he didn't have. He completely listened to me, which was great. But so I'm taking a very objective view. I always get the mix around objective view because I'm looking at what he's just performed, the speed of the bar, those sort of things. So as a coach to client, they're great. And if you don't, and for a listener that say you might not have a coach, filming your stuff is so key, because as I then said, for me, so obviously I wasn't being coached, but I was having people tell me, oh yeah, it was look fine, but I'm not going to listen to other people that don't know my lifts. They just say, oh, it looked fine, which it probably did. So when I look back at my videos, that's why I have a good perception of how I can lift, because I watch back my videos and I cool, that speed of the bar didn't slow down. Like I'm looking at where the bar speeded, slowed down, and say, right, I know that slowed down because of X, Y, or Z. You know, I know why. I can rectify that. Also, I think getting competition specific. So, like, we had 4 goes of using the deadlift bar. So, for those that don't know what a deadlift bar is, it's got a lot more slack. It's a longer bar, right? And when you pull it, it doesn't. It's unlike a weightlifting bar, which is very stiff. It's got a lot more flex. So these sort of bars can be really beneficial for a deadlift, hence they're called a deadlift bar. But they're only beneficial when you can practice them and get used to them. Otherwise, they can actually be a hindrance because when you pull on a deadlift bar, normally that slack goes through your body with the stiff bar. But now you've got to take the slack out of the bar and then into the body and then lift it. So there's like a whole nother step to it, which can be quite disjointing when you're not comfortable with it. So that's why we was going to Ronin, because they had a deadlift bar, a squat bar, which is 25 kilos rather than 20 kilos and thicker with more grippier knurling. So again, those sort of changes are like are really important to then understand. So what on the day, if there are anything that's different, you don't freak out, because I think that was one of the most important bits as well for myself. Like with my 220 squats at the opening of my opening squat, to go wrong with the height, to be unwrapped early, so it was a bit just everything was not smooth. But that's competition. It's never going to, most likely won't go completely smooth. So being able to say, okay, cool. And this is, so then going on a bit of tangent of where my brain is going. But this is also why a couple of weeks before that, I started to train my client, I started to train Jamie with wearing a belt on the bench press. And I was like, even though you don't need to wear a belt to bench press, and it's probably not going to help you loads, if your back's cramping, you're going to want that belt because it's going to help subside that cramp. And I got from previous experience myself. And on the day, I used my belt to bench because I was cramping in my back from the 240 squat. So, you know, I was starting to get some cramps in position, and that's a huge thing. And I think the last point would probably be to not only just enjoy the day for what it is, that was what I really took away from going in at the right body weight, just who I was in the day. It made my experience so much better. But also to have a review process of the competition and say, okay, how did that feel? How did it go? Why did things go right or wrong? And then understand how to make them better for next time, if there is going to be a next time. Mainly because it's just like Jamie probably could have got even more on a lot if he had a 4th attempt on all of the lifts. But that's not the competition. The competition is 3 attempts, and it was his first competition, so he hadn't got a baseline. So now we have a baseline. Doesn't mean that all of his training maxes are his PB, competition PBs. There should be around 90 to 95% of that. But he now knows, okay, cool, this is what it feels like to compete all day in a competition with, say, 10 other lifters. So that's how much rest you're roughly going to get. So they're all the things that you don't normally get used to. And it was amazing because the powerlifting gym that we was at, it was just like any like CrossFit place, stuff like that. It was such a community, like in the way everyone was with each other, and it's just like that's what competition brings out. Yes, you got those people with headphones on, head down, just doing them. That's fair enough. But most people are just like, you know, even like the geared lifters, the assisted lifters, whatever. Like everyone's just together because it's just fun, and that was what was great about the day as well.
That's brilliant, mate. I think, I think you probably inspired a few people to give it a go.
Definitely worth it.
Yeah, I like that feels versus reels point. That's what Tiger Woods calls it, where basically the way a movement feels isn't necessarily an accurate reflection of reality. And I think, I really like the way you advocate for an objective review for like your deadlift. It felt slow, but actually it might not have been slow. So having that checkpoint, because in competition, when your emotions are really high, your ability to think rationally is compromised. Like factually, you can't think as clearly when you're under that sort of stress and pressure. So having a process in place to say, if I haven't got a coach with me to help review my lifts, I'm going to have the tape, and then I can have a look at it and almost put your coach's hat on and say, if this wasn't me and I saw the lift go up like that, how would that inform my next weight selection? to take some of that emotion out of it and
Yeah.
act more logically. That's really cool. So given all of that, you've given us a little bit of a insight as to how you're going to change your training for the deadlift. Are there any other tweaks or learnings or advice for anybody else taking on a powerlifting competition?
Definitely a few bits of advice is if you have a baseline of where you're at and you can see any clear weaknesses, then make sure you start to hammer those. Don't then go from, say, squatting once a week to 3 to 4 times a week. Start to accumulate over the weeks and stuff. So using Jamie as an example with his numbers. So Jamie, because of his depth was always a bit questionable, and he's just showed in competition he had no issue with depth. He was able to hit it. So it's just he needs to man the fuck up and get and do it properly. And he knows that now. He's like, all right, cool. I can actually hit these positions. So his squat is well under where it needs to be competitive with other people in his weight category. His bench press was on par, could be a bit better, and his deadlift needs to be a bit better, but his squat is well under. So his training is now going to go from, say, squatting, say, 2 times a week to maybe 3 times a week for a period, but not necessarily all competition squats. So just squatting in all different styles. So we've currently got him into some front squats and some high bar back squats. So just to start working on some upper back strength. So again, holding that weight on the back and kind of to deload the competition, because he does a low bar squat. So it does put a bit of stress on the wrists and the shoulders. I'm kind of taking him away from the competition squat for 4 weeks, just kind of deload that movement, but still get him squatting and keeping the frequency up. And so that's a big focus for him. And then everything else is going to kind of like tick over and kind of just like follow a nice standard strength progression over the next couple of months, ready for November. Because when I said to him the other day, it's only 3 12-week cycles. So no, it's only 2 12-week cycles. So that's not that long. So it's really like if you're doing anything, like you got enough time, but you haven't got loads of time. And with me, I think I'm going to go. I seem to like a short prep, so I'm going to wait till about 6 to 8 weeks out, because I think anything more is too much time for me to be thinking about things. And I just want to bring a lot more aerobic training back in. So not necessarily long stuff, but like sprints and stuff like that, just to kind of get a bit of feeling of like that lung burning back. And kind of just have all my strength numbers on a bit of a maintenance. So like kind of still follow, like I'm going to follow my strength method, where it's basically 5-3-1, but focusing on building to a heavy 5, build to a heavy 3, and then build to a heavy 1. And then I taper down off the number that I hit for the day for some volume. So kind of do my main lifts once a week. And then I'm going to just bring some weightlifting back in for that speed, because I love weightlifting. And I'd love to be a hybrid athlete, but from when I've listened to people like Steffi Cohen talk, and she's like, it's so hard to do weightlifting and powerlifting. They just don't work together. Even though you can, you're just not going to be great at either. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be great at either of them anyway, so I might just do it anyway, my way. And because I'm not looking to be elite, I'm just looking to be as good as I can be and enjoy training. And for me, weightlifting is so enjoyable, but I just love squat, bench, and deadlift.
Exactly. Like you've got to make that trade-off, which is a personal decision as to how specialized you want to be. And if you didn't feel great only doing powerlifting, then you're happy to sacrifice some powerlifting performance for all-round health and how you feel outside of the gym as well. I think for me, the coolest part of it all was that you're still able to hit lifetime PBs just doing 2 sessions a week. And almost because you were training so little with other stuff, there was so little conflict with your other training, like because there was so little recovery demand from other aspects of your training, your core lifts were able to progress. Interference was the better word I was looking for there. And I think that's a lesson for people who like to do it all, that when you actually remove some training, it enables the stuff that you leave in to actually progress really well, because there's no recovery demand that's been used up elsewhere.
Yeah, because what I then took into consideration is in those particular sessions, because I knew so I was training 2 times a week, and then if I had but if I wanted to, I'd have a third session, which will probably be some bodybuilding, to be honest with you. And so I might then do my bench specific volume that I was supposed to be doing, but most of the time I just did some bodybuilding. And I didn't even do that, though. I said 2 times a week. But the thing I then went into with the mindset was I kind of pushed a little bit more than I should on all the sessions. So like my RP6 was probably an RP 6.5. So it was still because of those percentage brackets that I spoke about at the start, I always hit the top percentage. There was no question. I went for that top percent because I was only training twice. I was like, look, have a little bit more rest, but hit that number. So I didn't let myself ease off. So it was always pushing, which would probably be closer to the 0.5. But it was that was what my goal was, because I knew I wouldn't. And just to be clear, that I did only train twice a week, but I then didn't sit on my ass for the rest of the week. I was then PTing, doing a lot of like building the gym, so a lot of lifting, manual labor stuff. So there was a lot of digging holes and fucking all that shit. So it's like I was doing so much manual labor that it was functional training rather than actual training for specific lifting. And I think that's where that's why I made the decision to not often do the third or fourth session, because the stress on the body from the manual labor was so high that then it didn't give me the ability to train, because then I'll start to become overtrained because I wouldn't be able to recover. So it's under recovery. So then it meant my Monday, Tuesday sessions would be pretty shit. So that's what I always, and then so a week out, 1 or 2 weeks or 10 days out from the competition, I didn't do any manual labor because of my hands getting cut up and hitting hammers and stuff like that, like the feeling through my joints and stuff. I was like, look, I'll just take some time off, let the body recover from that, train. And that week, the 2 weeks prior to the competition, I actually did 3 times a week in 1 week, and then I did. Then did 1 on the week off. So you know, so I got 4 sessions in 2 weeks. So yeah, but I feel good.
Less but better, mate. Less but better.
Less but better. And then I do think lastly, I think for anyone that hasn't competed, like even if it's not in a competition, like testing yourself and seeing what you're made of every so often is a really cool thing to do. Because for me to see myself fail the 280 was such an interesting thing to now look back on, and to see that I probably had the strength, I just didn't have the mental toughness for it, shows that then I need to be closer to there more often. So obviously where I've been training is so sub-maximal, like I didn't lift above 260 for the whole prep. So I had no right technically in going to 280. Same as my squats. I went 225 as the heaviest squat, so I only planned for 230, which, okay, you can kind of do that in a competition. Like say, I'm going to peak to what I should get in competition, right? So I had no right in hitting these numbers. It's just what I obviously had deep down. I just need to trigger them to get them working, which is why if I do have a successful prep at some point, I might actually be all right and I might actually get some numbers that I think. But for me, it's like I plan to hit 280 in training before I compete again next. So I do plan to hit that and make sure that'll be a lifetime PB and stuff. So I plan to hit it. So the reason I can now say that is because I've tested myself. I've seen where my failures come from. So I can now address them rather than wait till the competition day to address them when it's too late.
Beautiful, mate.
Awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
You're going to take us out of here.
Yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed my monologue of the day, and I really hope you have got a bit of inspiration to at least maybe think about pushing yourselves in what you choose to train, and whether it's, you know, in team sports or solo sports or anything like that. And, you know, maybe give yourself a goal of training towards something. We often talk about, you know, making sure there's some direction to your training. And I think a competition is sometimes a nice, clear direction if you're struggling to find that motivation or direction. So if you did enjoy today's episode, we would love for you to share it on social media. You know, don't forget to tag us on Instagram at lunge.lift. And if you did enjoy it and want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it. And if you do want to support the podcast, you can head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. So thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.